Terrifying discovery, a sinister ship graveyard in deep space revealed 100 unexplained horrors. The night echoed with the sound of dread. Rebecca's hands trembled as she stumbled upon Jake's latest video titled Terrifying Discovery, a sinister ship graveyard in deep space revealed 100 unexplained horrors. Her heart raced. The vessel graveyard loomed in Jake's insatiable curiosity, a dark web of whispers about ships drifting through the void, vanished without a trace. What if these haunting tales were more than urban legend? An electric tension hung in the air, anxious enough to bite the back of her throat, as shadows danced across her porch. Inside, the light flickered ominously, casting monstrous shapes against the walls. The images Jake captured swirled in heavy tension, ghostly ships surrounded by an endless sea of nothingness, their rusting bodies frozen in time. She could almost hear their silent screams echo through space. Each frame screamed danger and despair, pulling her deeper into a terror she never signed up for. Nothing prepared her for the suffocating paranoia that surrounded her son. Those eyes on the screen felt like they were watching her back. She glanced at the clock past midnight. The flurry of bills stacking up in her purse turned into a pit in her stomach. The streets outside usually echoed with children's laughter, but now silence laid a heavy blanket across suburban homes that felt anything but peaceful. Panic twisted in her chest, racing through her veins. Jake was gone. Where could he be? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue sinking deeper. She pieced together the video, a nightmarish amalgamation of conspiracy theories. The graveyard linked to a trail of disappearances, victims snared by gripping fables that echoed through the years, haunting whispers of unsettled souls who transcended into the phantom limbo of the cosmos. Was she losing her son to this madness? A tremor rippled through her as she shouted out his name, her voice cracking. No reply but a suffocating throb in her heart. She leaped from room to room, tearing through pillows and blankets in desperation, only to meet a lonely echo of regret. The feeling of dread crept like fog, something vile lurked in the edges of her fervent imagination. After a few frantic moments, she bolted outside, catching the glint of light from her neighbor's porch. Mr. Thompson, with his reassuring smile, seemed to hold secrets, hidden truths concealed behind those soft eyes. "You've seen the news, haven't you?" he said, his voice too calm, too knowing. She felt chills race down her spine. A distant howl rose up the street, a cry swallowed by willows that stood like melancholic guards. Panic surged, her sanctuary, once a haven of tranquility, now twisted into an eerie labyrinth. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadowed figure slipping behind a tree. Before she could comprehend, a loud laughter erupted, slicing through the night, harsh and chilling. That voice, the familiar coat, could it be Jake? All at once the night felt alive, a living entity breathing dread, and the terror built within her like waves crashing against a fragile shore. What lurked here, dancing on the edges of reality? As sweet safety dripped away, a gut-wrenching truth clawed its way up her throat. This suburban haven was anything but, morphing into a horror-filled maze she could hardly process. Where had Jake gone? And what had she put him into? This moment felt monumental, the dark threads of fate weaving tighter. The echo of lost souls called out, but would she reclaim her son, or lose him forever to the sinister whispers of deep space? Rebecca stood frozen, heart racing, scanning the darkness that enveloped her home. The laughter lingered in her mind, twisting the knife of fear deeper. It wasn't just a sound, it was an invitation to madness. "Jake!" she shouted again, desperation coating her voice. The emptiness clawed at her, whispering lies of safety that no longer existed. She strained to listen, hoping to catch even a subtle movement or a hint of her son's footsteps. The trees rustled menacingly, branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Her neighbor's smile felt hollow, a mask hiding something sinister. "What do you know, Mr. Thompson?" she asked, stepping closer, urgency pushing the words from her lips. He looked her in the eye, but the calm was a shallow well, threatening to dry up at any moment. "They say some things are better left alone, especially in the dark." A shiver slithered down her spine. What was he implying? Sudden flickers of light caught her attention. In a flash, the glow illuminated the backyard. Shadows morphed and danced along the fence. Rebecca's breath quickened. "I need to check." She darted toward the swirling glow, her feet pounding against the hard surface. The whispers began the foreign tongue of ghostly voices. Each syllable echoed the anguish of a lost soul, familiar and distant all at once. Shapes flickered at the edges of her vision, and the air thickened with dread. She halted, staring into the backyard where fragments of Jake's toys lay sprawled across the grass, eerily untouched. Her eyes caught something in the underbrush, a glimmer of silver, catching the moonlight. She rushed forward, heart pounding. Could it be? Was it something Jake left behind? She knelt and grasped a small, twisted piece of metal, recognition slashing through her like ice. It was part of the model spaceship he had built. Panic surged anew, his presence was being tugged and twisted in the dark. "Jake! Where are you?" Her voice trembled, quivering with fear and fury. Through the thorns, she noticed the silhouette again. It danced just beyond her reach, taunting her with its presence. A sudden realization struck her hard: the shadows were watching, waiting. She dropped the piece of metal, feeling the acidic weight of bile rise. "Stop playing games!" she cried out, a mixture of anger and dread threading through her. A shudder ran through the night air as the wind picked up, swirling leaves into chaotic spirals. Then she heard it, a faint whistle mingling with the distant echoes of the laughter. The melody tugged at her thoughts, mesmerizing and dreadful. With a deep breath, Rebecca stepped into the darkness. "Jake!" she screamed, her voice cracking. The trees loomed like giants, whispering secrets she could not hear. The laughter morphed around her, becoming a choral harmony of pleas and cries. Then, from the shadows, a flash of light, brilliant and blinding. Rebecca covered her eyes. What the hell? She felt something shift in the ground beneath her, tremors like fingers curling around her ankles. And that's when she saw it, a massive shadow swooping down, bursting through the trees like a monstrous beast of nightmares, an outline of a ship, glistening in the sparse moonlight, hovering just above the ground. A cold shiver of realization hit her. No, the ground shook harder. The laughter became chaos, enveloping her as a voice echoed, "Join us, Rebecca." In that moment, she knew the truth: the sinister ship that haunted Jake wasn't just a figment of curiosity. It was real, and it had a purpose. With every ounce of strength, she turned to run, racing back towards home, urgency spilling into her limbs. The night had come alive, and whatever lay behind her craved her presence. Could she escape, or would she too become a part of the whispers, forever lost in the graveyard of forgotten souls? Rebecca sprinted back that way, her breath coming in ragged gasps, each moment stretching like eternity. The trees blurred past her, twisted figures of phantom limbs. Shadows reached, clawing at her skin, alive and sentient. She could almost feel them tug at her hair, a sinister invitation to surrender. "Jake!" The name fell from her lips like a lifeline into the abyss, begging him to respond. The laughter twisted in the air, wrapping around her like a noose. It wasn't just the wind anymore, it was something living, feeding off her fear. She stumbled over the remnants of Jake's toys, their plastic forms mocking her as they lay scattered on the ground. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs as she glanced back, expecting to see something lurking just out of sight. But there was nothing, only the relentless darkness that swallowed the faint moonlight. Then she remembered Mr. Thompson's words, an echo clawing at her mind. Some things were meant to remain undisturbed. The dread that wrapped around her intensified, constricting her chest, and she fought to push it away. The ship loomed like a curse just behind her, but she had to keep moving. She had to escape. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Rebecca veered towards the front of the house, her feet pounding against the walkway. The door was an infinity away, the truth pricking her consciousness like 1,000 needles. She reached the porch steps, fingers fumbling with the doorknob, heart racing wildly as if it too was desperate to leave. The shadows surged, crawling too close for comfort. She hesitated, looking back into the yard. The ship glimmered with a sickly light, pulsating like a heartbeat. And then, amidst the silence, she caught sight of it, a figure emerging from the darkness. "Mom!" The voice was a sweet serenade, a flicker of hope. But it was wrong. The tenor was too smooth, too carefree, smothered in that twisted laughter. The figure took a step closer, illuminating just enough for Rebecca to see. It wasn't Jake. "Come and play with us," the figure grinned widely, but its eyes held nothing but an abyss. It was another child, maybe once human, but now a marionette of darkness, its innocence stripped away. "Get away!" she shouted, her voice sharp as a razor. There was a sickening familiarity to its expression, one that made her stomach turn. The shadows ebbed and flowed around it like a living shroud, the laughter echoed again, insistent and cruel, a macabre symphony that called to her. Desperation ignited a fire deep within her, and she flung the door open and slammed it shut behind her, collapsing against it as she gasped for air. The familiar scent of her house enveloped her, but it felt alien, like a sanctuary turned prison. "Jake! Where are you?" she cried again, prowling through the dimly lit hallways. The furniture loomed like monstrous sentinels in the fading light. Each creak of the floorboards underfoot sent a jolt of panic through her veins. Then, a glimmer caught her eye. The television flickered to life in the living room, the image distorted and buzzing. Shapes twisted across the screen, moving in synchronized chaos, and Rebecca could barely recognize the figure dancing at the center. "Mom!" It was Jake's voice, woven with that insidious laughter. Was he trapped in there? She moved toward the screen, wide-eyed and breathless. "No!" she screamed. "This can't be happening." The TV flickered again, and the whispers emerged more clearly. "Join us, it's so much better." The words twisted around her as the room began to spin. The walls felt closer, enveloping her in claustrophobia. With trembling hands, she reached for the remote, desperate to turn it off, but the screen pulsed, drawing her closer, crafting a pull that felt like dark tendrils wrapping around her soul. Then she stopped, going still as the images shifted, revealing shadows that looked like the children from the backyard, all laughing in unison, their eyes, once bright, now hollows of despair. More than fear coursed through her, it was a sense of doom deepening. "Jake," she whispered, the name barely escaping her lips. The laughter echoed again, now mixed with distant cries for help, the kind that could feel a mother shatter. She could either fight or surrender. Taking a deep breath, Rebecca reached for the remote, but her finger hovered above the button as the whispers grew louder, dark promises filling the air. What if turning off the screen meant losing Jake forever? Could she really face the darkness alone? The walls whispered back, "It's only the beginning," and just like that, Rebecca understood she wasn't done yet. The night still had more terrors to unveil. The room shuddered, the walls seemingly pulsing with the whispers encircling her mind. Each flicker of the television illuminated the terrors that now hung in the air, coiling around her like a snake ready to strike. "Join us," it beckoned again, gravelly and sultry, a chain of shadows dragging her closer. "Jake!" she cried out again, but this time her voice felt small, swallowed by the sinister echoes. The urge to turn away was strong, her instincts clawing at her to flee from whatever nightmare had unfolded in her living room. Yet she hesitated, trapped in a web spun of trepidation and yearning, with both fear and hope bubbling inside her. Rebecca plunged forward and pressed the button. The screen flickered furiously, and for a bone-chilling second, everything turned black. Sweat pooled at her brow, the silence was deafening, the kind that pressed down and made it hard to breathe. Then the screen crackled back to life, this time displaying a new scene. A dark forest surrounded by mist, and there, amid the shadows, stood a shadowy replica of Jake, arms outstretched as if he were fighting against chains unseen. "Help me, Mom!" he screamed, the desperation lacing his voice sharper than any knife. The sound knifed through her gut, twisting her heart until it felt like it might burst. Before she could reach for the remote again, something cold brushed past her cheek, an icy finger of dread igniting every nerve. She turned, ready to confront whatever was lurking behind her, but the hall was empty, an unsettling silence filling the space like fog creeping in. Gathering every ounce of courage, Rebecca strode forward, each step echoing as she approached the screen once more. "I'll get you out," she promised, heart thrumming like a wild thing in her chest, the shadows behind her stirring with intent, each creak of the house sounding like a taunt. "Mom! Please!" Jake's voice rang out again, desperation dancing alongside the seductive laughter of the unseen children. As she leaned closer, captivated yet terrified, Rebecca felt the air shift, the chill angling toward her like a gust from a graveyard. Shadows from the television leaked into the room, and for a bone-chilling instant, she could almost see silhouettes forming behind her, echoing Jake's haunting plea. The cry of dozens melded into one distressing chorus, each voice leaving behind a chill that settled deep in her bones. Reacting like a puppet on strings, Rebecca reached for the screen again. She had to break through. The laughter grew louder, a demented cacophony that made her skin crawl. Whoever was laughing, whoever had taken Jake, thrived on her torment, hungering for her to drop to her knees in defeat. "Join us!" The chorus morphed into a sweet, whispering madness, a promise of belonging now tangled with dread. Could this be a trap? Would she lose him forever? The questions snaked through her mind like poison. "Get out of my head!" she screamed, eyes wide with panic. She gripped the remote, fingers trembling as she willed herself to press the button yet again, but as she prepared to retake control, a sudden reflection caught her attention. A darkened figure in the far corner of the room looming, coiling, just beyond the edge of the light. The figure raised its head slowly, lips parting in an unsettling grin, revealing not one but two rows of jagged teeth. "Come," it whispered, pulling her deeper into a nightmare she never asked for. For an instant, Rebecca's resolve wavered. If it could afford her the truth about Jake, but was she prepared for the horror it might reveal? "The final truth can be more terrifying than the shadows that dance around you," it hissed softly, sending a shiver down her spine. Her heart beat louder, thumping painfully against her ribcage. Endless questions rattled her mind, but only one echoed painfully through the chamber of despair: what truth lay hidden in the dark? The figure stepped closer, its real intentions cloaked in mystery, as the room dimmed beneath the weight of her decision. She stood frozen, faced with a terror that was no longer just a haunting whisper but a living nightmare waiting to embrace her. What would she discover if she took that step into darkness? The darkness writhed, an entity all its own. The shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, and Rebecca felt a pull deep inside, as if the air itself was beckoning her closer to the figure. She hesitated, heart racing, trapped between saving Jake and succumbing to this entity, this shadow made flesh. "Do you want to see him?" The figure's voice was smooth, yet raspy, a snake slithering through her mind. "Do you want to save him?" "Yes," she replied, her voice a desperate rasp, as though it were the only truth left to cling to. The figure unfurled itself, revealing a gaunt, elongated shape that resonated with an eerie familiarity. As Rebecca gazed into its dark eyes, an unsettling chill ran down her spine, like winter's breath on bare skin. She caught a glimmer of movement, and for a fleeting second, she thought she saw Jake's face in the swirling abyss behind the figure, tired, pleading, desperate. "Step closer," it urged, an inviting purple glow flickering from its hollow heartbeat. "Join us. It's your only chance." Rebecca felt the pull tighten, her feet inching forward against her will. "What did you do to him?" she cried out, but the words barely escaped her lips, drowned in the tempest of shadows swirling around her. Not what you think, sweet Rebecca, it chuckled, a sound that was part consonant, part hiss. He is with friends, now each syllable resonated with sinister glee. The walls pulsed, morphing with her fear, shadows becoming more defined, faces melded with unnatural features, both twisted and childlike. She squinted, trying to focus, and recognized a few children who had gone missing over the years, their happiness turned sinister, eyes wide with seduction and madness. Her breath hitched. Panic clawed at her throat. They were trapped, just like Jake trapped, but it had been more than just physical captivity. They had been consumed by something much darker, something that feasted on innocence, leaving only echoes of despair. Run! She commanded herself, but the shadows bore down like a weight pressing against her chest. A stinging reminder of Jake's voice echoed in her ears, "Help me, Mom." She glanced at the television, its glow brighter now, distorting the shadows around her. The forest appeared more vibrant, Jake still battling those unseen chains, a vision more vivid than ever. Suddenly, the screen distorted again, the images swirling into a vortex of color and sound, a carnival of chaos, the laughter now turning into screams. "Don't you see?" The figure enticed her, each syllable fanning the flame of her dread. "You can be with him. Just give in. Join us." In that moment, a fierce resolve ignited within her. She wouldn't dive into this abyss, she would not join these twisted souls. But the moment Rebecca made her decision, the air shifted again, a crackle of energy spiraling around her. The shadows shrieked, as if rebelling against her defiance, forcing her to confront her deepest fear, that darkness had come to claim her, to take her child, to swallow them both. With a wild glance at the television, the determination blossomed into desperation. "I will find you, Jake," she shouted, almost drowning out the cacophony surrounding her. As she broke away from the grip of the shadowy figure, the laughter morphed into anguished wails, reverberating through the house. But just as she turned to flee, she felt a sharp grip latch onto her wrist, cold and shuddering. "Stay," it hissed, pulling her back into the fray. "You can't escape your destiny." Rebecca gasped, her heart racing, the candle flickering to life, casting long shadows that danced ominously on the walls. As her vision narrowed, she spotted Jake's replica reaching toward her, helpless yet clear within the electric chaos. "Mom!" he cried again, and she stumbled back breathlessly, fear swelling in her chest. Was it too late? "Help me," the shadows murmured, twisting into a vortex around her. A fleeting moment hung there, suspended in the madness. Would she yield her soul to the darkness for the chance to save him? Or would she risk losing both of them forever? Before she could decide, everything went black. What awaited Rebecca in the void? The air seemed to swell with a thick silence, freezing her in place. Then, as if drawn forward by an unseen force, whispers ignited once more, flooding her senses with bone-chilling uncertainty. "Do you dare to look?" the figure taunted, its voice weaving through her thoughts. As reality blurred, a new image began to form in the depths of her mind, one so horrifically compelling that it made her breath quicken. Would she dare to face the nightmares before her, to discover the truth buried in darkness? Rebecca felt herself drifting within that black expanse, suspended in a silence that screamed. The weight of despair pressed on her chest, each breath becoming a struggle against the unseen force that wrapped around her like chains. She could sense the shadows stirring, forming something sinister just beyond her reach. "Don't resist," the figure, that unholy whisperer, seeped into her consciousness again. "You belong to us." "He belongs to us." Suddenly, she was yanked back, thrust into a whirlwind of images. Jake, innocent and spirited, laughing in the sunlight, then flickering beside a twisted, nightmarish version of himself, eyes hollow, mouth stretching into a vicious grin. Her stomach churned with nausea, and she grasped her head, trying to fend off the images clawing their way in. "Rebecca! Help me!" Jake's voice reverberated within her, layered with layers of torment. Her heart clenched. She couldn't let fear consume her, but it gnawed away at her resolve, each heartbeat resonating with desperation. "Look closer," the figure urged, its voice wrapping around her like vines. "What do you want to see?" At that moment, fragments of her past crashed into her mind, moments spent cuddled on the couch, reading bedtime stories, illuminating Jake's bright spirit. And then, presents came, those lost children she had seen before, their twisted faces creeping closer, filling the void with anguish. Overwhelmed, she squeezed her eyes shut. "Please show me the truth." The desperation poured out of her. As she uttered the words, a sudden flash illuminated the darkness, a vision of twisted machinery, of a vast, dilapidated ship lodged between shadows and void. She recoiled, gasping as the dread erupted within her. Each creak of metal echoed like distant screams. The ship was more than a graveyard of forgotten dreams, it was a haunting prison, a nexus of suffering. "Welcome to our sanctuary," the figure hissed, the echo of children's laughter intermingling with the cries of despair. "Join us." But Rebecca knew better. No sanctuary could bring peace if it fed off fear and innocence. She forced herself to remember her promise to Jake, to never abandon him, no matter the cost. "I'll free you," she vowed, her voice shaking with courage. "I'll fight." With her declaration, the darkness pulsed violently, shadows warping and twisting in protest. The gaunt figure winced, retreating slightly. "You are brave, sweet Rebecca. But bravery means nothing here." As she steadied herself against the turmoil, she noticed other figures materializing in the grips of despair, shadows of parents, siblings long lost. Yet, their faces were obscured, grotesque, reminding her of Jake's distortion. "Help us," they pleaded in unison, voices cracked and strained. "Save our children." "Not without your help," she shot back, forcing her determination to rip through the fabric of fear. With renewed focus, Rebecca opened her eyes, searching for a way to break the cycle. In her heart, she held on to Jake's face, his bravery. She envisioned him reaching for her, pulling her back into the light. A surge of energy radiated from her, and with it, the shadows seemed to recoil, thrashing in agony. "Stay." The figure's tone shifted to a raspy wail, the resonance echoing through her mind. "Not for you," she shouted, fist raised, conviction swelling her spirit. The air around her crackled with electricity. It felt as if she was on the brink, ready to unleash something powerful. Suddenly, the darkness shivered, revealing a path through the swirling chaos, the outline of Jake appearing faintly at the far end. "Mom!" His call was strained, filled with terror and hope, a beacon she couldn't ignore. Rebecca took a step forward, then another, urged on by an invisible force, one that entwined with her intentions. The shadows shrieked around her, a thunderstorm of fear battling against her relentless charge, but as she moved closer, uncertainty gnawed at her again. What lies beyond? Am I strong enough? She reached deep for courage, the hope for Jake guiding her. And just like that, a piercing shriek echoed through the void. Reverberating until it felt like bone and flesh echoed too, as lights flickered and swirled. "Face your reality, Rebecca." The figure crooned, its voice dark and alluring, or lose him forever. Would she dare step into the light and confront her darkest fears to rescue Jake? Or would they both be lost to the shadows, devoured by the curse that bound them? The path shimmered before her, waiting. What would she choose, and at what cost? Rebecca lunged forward, propelled by the burning image of Jake shimmering like a beacon through the oppressive darkness. Each step felt like a battle against an unseen force, a weight dragging her back as if the void itself fought to keep her from reaching him. The path ahead twisted and turned, the shadows swirling in a grotesque ballet of despair. "Mom! Please!" Jake's voice sliced through the air, sharp and strained. It was both a plea and a command, the raw edge of terror igniting her will. She clenched her fists, pushing past her fears, feeling warmth teasing at her consciousness as she drew closer. With every ounce of determination, she rushed down the jagged corridor formed by darkness, pain echoing with each footfall. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of tormented fragments, their pleas mingling with twisted laughter. They clawed at her sanity, desperate to sway her resolve. "Leave now, it's a trick," the shadows hissed, weaving around her ankles, trying to pull her down into their depths. But she couldn't falter. "I am not afraid," she shouted, her voice breaking the suffocating grip of the shadows. Suddenly, a chilling wind erratically shifted the atmosphere, and the path erupted into a blinding light. For a second, she was blinded, her eyes filling with images of Jake's face shimmering in the brightness, smiling in the reflection of a real, normal world. Then everything changed. The blinding light flickered, revealing the monstrous ship, its hull rising before her like a demonic specter. Dark metal loomed over her, pocked and scratched, whispering secrets of its horrific past. The sounds of the lost clawed at her mind, each scream a testament to a life consumed by darkness. "Welcome, Rebecca," the figure crooned, now encased within the shape of the ship. "Welcome to where hope comes to die." She shuddered, her mind racing as she pieced together the truth. These were not just lost souls. They were trapped, bound in an endless cycle of suffering crafted by the very ship that loomed before her. The shadows tightened around her as the apparitions manifested, writhing in pain, their faces morphing into those of children, their eyes pleading for salvation. "Help us!" they echoed, their voices overlapping like a haunting chorus. She faltered, a heavy wave of dread surging through her. "Why do you torment me?" Rebecca shouted, unable to contain the searing pain swelling within her. "What are you? Why do you want Jake?" "Because," the figure replied, its voice dripping with malice. "He is pure. He is untouched by despair. And we crave innocence to live." Panic clawed at her throat as she realized, Jake was their target, a spark they would extinguish to feed their insatiable hunger. She had to reach him, had to pull him from this nightmare before it was too late. "Jake!" she screamed again, heart racing, adrenaline lighting her veins. But the ship responded with a rumble, shadows morphing and swirling, reacting to her fear. In an instant, the air thickened, turning to ice as visions of Jake morphed into scenes of horror, tender moments of laughter twisted into grotesque reflections of despair. The image of her son was replaced by an empty hollowness, smiling at her but with lifeless eyes, a nightmarish grin stretching too wide. "No. I want to let you have him." She pushed forward, determination fueling her steps. She was close enough to touch the distant outline of Jake, his small frame flickering like a candle, dimming with each heartbeat. The shadows screeched, a cacophony that shattered her senses. "You cannot save him," they wailed. "Join us, Rebecca." But she wouldn't yield. There was only one option. "I'll fight," she declared, words bursting forth like a battle cry. With every ounce of energy left in her, she thrust herself toward the light, ready to confront whatever horror awaited them both. As she sprinted into the blinding glow, time stretched, and the world around her dissolved into fragments of color and sound. Would she find Jake waiting, or was this the end of her reckoning? The darkness shuddered as her resolve threatened to break its hold. "Where is he?" she breathed, heart pounding, eyes darting around in desperation. Then, in the midst of the swirling chaos, an ominous shadow moved, slinking closer, impossibly familiar. A twisted figure flickered in and out of focus, smiling wide, a reflection of her own worst fears. The dread enveloped her once more, a suffocating grip pulling her into the unending night. Monstrous laughter echoed against the walls of her mind. Would she rescue Jake in time, or would she be lost forever amongst the howling souls? As the dark figure reached toward her, everything hung in the balance, a single moment poised at the edge of the abyss. Rebecca stumbled as the laughter burrowed deeper, her surroundings swirling in nightmarish patterns. The shadows around her trembled, tantalizing visions shifting from the reality she once knew. The twisted figure stepped closer, its eyes gleaming with malevolence. "Mommy?" Jake's voice was a faint whisper now, lost beneath the chaos. "No. No!" she screamed, her words swallowed by the shriek of the shadows. Panic surged through her, igniting a fire within. If these beings sought to consume her son, she wouldn't stand idly by. "Jake!" She shouted into the darkness, each syllable a desperate stab against the encroaching dread. But the laughter grew louder, reverberating off the ship's walls, mocking her anguish. "You'll never find him. He belongs to us." The twisted figure hissed, its form melting into shadows, disappearing from her sight like a wisp of smoke. Anger surged within her. "You think I'll give up? I will tear this place apart." Fueled by a primal instinct to protect her son, Rebecca lunged forward into the churning masses, her heart a drumbeat of defiance. Each step felt charged with electricity as the darkness clawed at her, seeking to halt her momentum. The walls pulsed with the energy of countless imprisoned souls, their cries illuminating her path. Rebecca's breaths quickened as she pressed ahead, dodging grasping limbs eager to pull her down into their despair. The shadows shifted and morphed around her, revealing flashes of twisted scenes: a family ripped apart, a child weeping silently, faces known yet unrecognizable in their sorrow. Those lost souls were not just her fears, they were memories reflected back at her, a tangible collection of anguish. "Help me, save us," they whispered in broken, fragmented tones. "No, I can't," she shouted back, shaking her head. "I can't help you." As her refusal echoed through the dark, she felt its weight press against her. She was one woman against a tide of despair. Suddenly, the air shifted, and a rush of wind swept through the darkness, dragging her to her knees. An unseen force enveloped her, whispering promises of freedom in exchange for her submission. "Join us, Rebecca. Forget your son. Embrace the dark." The shadows coiled around her, cold tendrils wrapping tighter, suffocating the will to fight. Images of her life flashed before her: moments with Jake, laughter shared, the warmth of his small body curled against her at night. She recoiled at the thought of surrendering to the void, of losing him to the insatiable hunger for innocence. "No. This ends now," she roared, summoning every ounce of strength left inside. She thrust her hands forward, projecting all her love, every cherished moment into the suffocating darkness. Her emotions exploded outward, a shockwave that shattered the binding darkness for just a moment. And there, through the fractured shadows, she glimpsed him, Jake, standing small and vulnerable, the brightness of his youthful spirit fighting against the encroaching despair. "Mommy!" he cried, reaching out, his tiny fingers straining against the shadows. "Jake!" Her heart surged with hope, but the darkness screamed back, a deafening roar that threatened to drown them both. "No! You won't take him!" she yelled, relentless as she launched herself toward her son. But the shadows writhed, trying to push her away, to take back the innocence they craved. Desperation gripped her, and with one powerful motion, she dove forward, arms outstretched, ready to reclaim her son from the abyss. The shadows clawed at her body, pulling her back, threatening to tear her from the love she yearned to protect. In that worst moment, when it felt like she could be swallowed whole, a bright light erupted from within her, helped by the force of her undying love. Would it be enough to pierce through the darkness, to bring Jake back into her arms? Or would they both be consumed by the ravenous void surrounding them? The moment Rebecca's light exploded, illuminating the darkness, she felt sheer determination surge through her veins. It pushed back against the shadows, sending ripples of fear through their twisted forms. Jake reached for her, belief radiating from him like a fragile beacon. She pushed forward, bearing the weight of all her hopes and fears, but as she closed the distance, the shadows roared in response, a cacophony of anguish intermingled with fury. They writhed and twisted, forming towering shapes that hid within the darkness, mouths opening wide, their laughter a chilling backdrop to her desperate advance. With a primal scream, Rebecca surged, breaking through the black mass that threatened to envelop her. Her body throbbed with the effort, muscles straining against the pull of despair. Every whisper, every memory of loss screamed in her ears. The shadows clawed, grasped, seeking to drag her down, bury her within their depthless obsidian heart. "Jake!" she cried, drowning out their cries of despair. Her litany of love sliced through the air, piercing the darkness where the shadows blended with the echoes of long-forgotten souls. Each step brought fleeting images closer, faces of children trapped, a child's laughter twisted into horrifying mockery, families torn apart by malevolent chains. She refused to look back at the haunting images. Instead, she focused on the twinkle of hope that was Jake. And there, just ahead, she saw his face, caught in a vulnerable moment. "Stay strong, baby," she shouted, her heart pounding like a war drum. Jake's eyes were wide, reflecting the dark void swirling around him, but the warmth of her spirit reached him. "Mommy. I'm scared," he wailed, as shadows lunged around him, reaching for his innocence. Time felt suspended as she broke through the ragged hold of despair. With one last desperate push, she surged forward, grasping at Jake's outstretched hand. In that instant, everything changed. The darkness pulled violently, merging into a monstrous mass, a howling vortex that whipped around them, lifting Rebecca and Jake into the air. A weighty force threatened to crush them as they spiraled upward, the shadows collapsing behind them in a chaotic maelstrom. "Hold on!" she screamed, her voice rising against the howl of the darkness. But the pull of despair was like gravity, relentless and unforgiving. The light within her flickered as the weight of the shadows pressed in. She reached out, focusing hard, pouring everything she had into that moment, a mother's love bursting forth like a firework in the night, a hope that screamed against the midnight, refusing to be silenced. And just when she thought they would be consumed, the darkness split open, revealing a blinding path to freedom. Rebecca felt herself pulled through the tear, her breath catching as the darkness spat them onto solid ground. They landed with a heavy thud, Jake tumbling into her arms. They lay panting, momentarily free, the shadows fading behind them into angry wisps, but as they recovered, a sinister silence enveloped them. The shadows retreated, but something was off. The air felt thick with unspent rage. "What is this place?" Jake whispered, trembling against her. A flicker of movement caught Rebecca's eye. In the distance, a figure lurked just within the edge of the darkness. Standing still, it seemed to beckon them with long, spindly fingers, a silhouette stretched unnaturally against a backdrop of stars. Heart racing, she drew Jake closer, desperately scanning for an escape. "Rebecca, you're never truly free," the voice echoed in the suffocating darkness, smooth and unsettling. "This is only the beginning. You can't hide from what's already claimed you." For the first time, fear twisted in her gut, a sense of dread that something far worse awaited them. She gripped Jake tighter, knowing now that the true horror was just getting started. What lurked in the shadows? What awaited them in this dreadful, abandoned place that felt so alive? "Run!" she shouted, and they sprinted forward, the figure's cold laughter trailing behind them, seeping into the cracks of their very souls. The sinister unknown loomed larger, and dread filled her heart as her instincts screamed that their fight was far from over. Would they find salvation? Or would they encounter a terror beyond their worst nightmares? Rebecca gasped for breath as she and Jake sprinted through the desolate wasteland of twisted metal and shadows. The figure they had seen flickered in and out of view, tormenting them with its presence. She could hear its voice, smooth and taunting, tainting the air with dread. "Run!" she urged again, adrenaline pumping through her veins, her fight now fueled by the instinct to protect Jake. Each stride felt heavy, the ground beneath them a living entity, trying to suck them back into despair. They pushed ahead, the nightmare landscape shifting around them, buildings twisting and bending like broken dreams. "Mom, where are we?" Jake's voice wavered, barely above a whisper, fear coating every syllable. "I don't know, babe, but we'll find a way out," she yelled, heart hammering as they approached an archway that pulsed with a strange dim light. With a burst of energy, Rebecca bolted toward it, toting Jake behind her, desperation brewing within her chest. The laughter echoed, warped and chilling, a reminder of the abyss they'd barely escaped. Just as they reached the threshold, a powerful gust of wind surged from behind, nearly knocking them off their feet. She turned instinctively, and there it was, a mass of shadows, an amalgamation of anguished faces screaming, "Join us! Don't look back, Jake!" She pulled him forward, crossing through the archway, where the illumination cast a warm glow. It felt like an invitation on the other side. A beautiful landscape opened before them, sun shining through leaves, the scent of fresh blossoms drifting in the air. It was almost too perfect a sanctuary from all the fear. But something gnawed at her belly. Was this an illusion? "Mommy, is it safe?" Jake asked, eyes wide, darting around the unfamiliar scenery. Temptation pressed on Rebecca like a weight. "It has to be, right? Just stay close," she insisted, scanning every corner. Warmth flooded her heart as the sun kissed her skin, but shadows lurked at the edges of her vision. Suddenly, she felt it, the fingers of darkness inching in. Panic washed over her. "We have to keep moving." They ran deeper into the beautiful illusion, the sounds of nature soothing yet eerily distorted as if something was camouflaged beneath. They approached a shimmering lake, the water rippling beneath the sunlight, but with each wave came whispers, haunting calls of the lost. "Jake, we can't stay here." But before she could turn away, the surface of the lake morphed, revealing images of those trapped by the ship's malevolence. Familiar faces twisted in a ghoulish dance, pleading silently. Jake stepped closer, entranced. "Mom, look, don't!" she shouted. A surge of dread coursed through her, a flood of memories overwhelming her senses. She grasped his arm, pulling him back as the whispers grew louder, clamoring for his innocence. "It's a trap. We have to go, now." In desperation, Rebecca took Jake's hand and looked firmly into his eyes. "Jake, we have to fight this, together. Do you trust me?" His nod was resolute, yet vulnerability flickered behind his gaze. The shadows converged again, swirling menacingly. "You can't escape your fate. The shadows will always chase you," their voices echoed, wrapping around her like icy chains. "No!" she screamed, defiance igniting a fire within. "We chose life. We will not give in to you." In that moment, Rebecca recalled every moment with Jake, every laugh shared, every treasure unearthed in their small world of love. She closed her eyes, summoned the light in her heart, and envisioned breaking the grip of the shadows. An energy surged and burst through her, vibrant and powerful. The shadows recoiled at her declaration, shrieking in protest. "Flee! Let us go, Jake!" she cried, bolting toward the horizon, fueled by love and determination. Bright rays broke through the clouds, illuminating their path as they sprinted through the beautiful illusion, refusing to look back. The warmth surrounding them came with newfound strength, each step fueled by hope, a hope that echoed out to all those lost. As they raced forward, the laughter transformed, fading into cries of the tormented, and the shadowy figures diminished, retreating behind as light engulfed them. Finally, they stumbled over a hill, breathless and full of purpose. Below, they spotted a vibrant city alive with laughter, colors bursting in tune with joyful voices. It radiated hope as it shimmered like a beacon against the darkness chasing them. "Mom, look!" Jake shouted, pointing at the sunlit bridge leading to the city. "We made it, baby!" She laughed, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks, but the shadows still lurked at the fringes. Their presence felt like dark fingers curling around her heart. They had escaped this moment, but she knew there would always be battles to fight against the darkness. The whispers would always remain. "Together, Jake," Rebecca said fiercely, gripping his hand tighter. "We will face every shadow because love is stronger than darkness." With hearts intertwined, they embraced the light, walking toward the city of hope. As they stepped onto the bridge, the shadows writhed and retreated, their cries dimming in the distance. Rebecca knew she would always fight for her son, for as long as they shared the light, and as more daylight filled the world before them, she held on to the knowledge that, even in the depths of despair, love could illuminate the darkest of paths. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to catch all the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the excitement alive. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this epic ride, because every true fan knows just how important your support is to the channel.